The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek episode 173. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the latest Lower Decks episode, Where Pleasant Fountains Lie. And joining me today in the panel are Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Stika. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Folks, be sure to join the StarQuest fan club by texting StarQuest to 66866. That's StarQuest to 66866. And I also want to tell you about another show that's on the StarQuest network called Let's Science. Our three friends from Australia, Caroline, Lindsay, and Lino, they tackle a fun or interesting topic of science every other week in about 15 or 20 minutes. It's a lot of fun, and it's very interesting, and you should definitely check it out. It's at sqpn.com/science or wherever you find fine podcasts. So we are talking about this Lower Decks episode, Where Pleasant Fountains Lie. And Jimmy, can you give us a quick recap?
This week, Lwaxana Troi shows up, and once again, she's really desperate to get Deanna a husband. Actually, it isn't Lwaxana, but Queen Paulana of Hesperia, a planet colonized by Ren faire enthusiasts, so the planet is basically a Ren faire in space. Her son is Chief Engineer Billups of the Cerritos, and she's always trying to trick him into not being a virgin, because if he stops being a virgin, he'll have to come home and become king of the Ren faire planet, and he doesn't want to. But this time, it seems, she just needs help fixing an engineering problem on her ship, which Billups and Rutherford do, earning her respect. Then there is a catastrophic explosion, killing both her and Rutherford, so Billups decides to fulfill his duty to his home planet, resigns his commission in Starfleet, and prepares to stop being a virgin. Fortunately, Tendi discovers that this was just another one of his mother's elaborate tricks to get him to become king, and both the Queen and Rutherford are actually alive. They thus save Billups from becoming king. Meanwhile, Mariner and Boimler are assigned to take an evil supercomputer to the Daystrom Institute on Earth, but after they crash on a planet, the evil computer keeps trying to drive a wedge between the two of them so it can get connected to a computerized system and resume its evil plans. This seems to be working, and it looks like Boimler has abandoned Mariner and is going to let the evil computer have its way, but really Boimler is one step ahead of the evil computer, so he only hooks it up to a useless computer system that controls a dimmer switch. But this allows Boimler to get enough power to broadcast a distress signal, so the two of them are saved and the evil computer is safely delivered to the Daystrom Institute. The end.
I just was thinking, I wonder if the being connected to the dimmer switch is a sideways reference to the Amazon Echo. Yeah. All the smart home devices. So this episode takes off of several Trek episodes at once, the features from it. I mean, including, like you mentioned, Lwaxana Troi. There are a lot of Trek episodes that feature evil supercomputers.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Especially in the original series, there's a couple of them at least. There was the Ultimate Computer, where we had the M whatever it was with Dr. Daystrom himself in it. There was, and his engrams were imprinted on it. There was Return of the Archons with the Landru supercomputer. There was the Apple with the Vol supercomputer. There was it wasn't a Private Little War, but there was the one where you had the two competing planets that were letting a computer decide who died in their war. Right.
So yeah, lots of evil computer action going on in the original series.
It was a common fear at the time, right? As computers were new. So
And apparently it continues because we see at the end the Daystrom Institute's repository of evil megalomaniacal computers, and it's full.
It's full, including one that has the logo of the CBS logo on it, which was awesome.
That was great.
I like how they're all basically desktop-sized computers,
right?
And with no monitors. It's just the CPU of a desktop-sized computer.
I have to say the one, what was it? What do they call this one? AGIMUS.
Lord AGIMUS.
Yes, AGIMUS. It had the general shape and look of an original Macintosh. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny that this evil supercomputer was an original Mac, which was fun.
Except it also had waving tentacle-like wires coming out of it.
USB.
Well, that's in the next version of the Mac. They'll have those next year.
Yes, they were all autonomous wires.
And of course, we should mention, since we mentioned AGIMUS, that he was voiced by the great Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the thing I was most excited about with AGIMUS is we get Jeffrey Combs back. And if you don't remember who Jeffrey Combs is, he's an actor who in Star Trek has played. He's most famous for being Weyoun and Brunt on Deep Space Nine. He was also Shran on Enterprise, and he did bit parts on Voyager, and I believe he did one on Next Gen.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's been, apart from the modern era, he was in all of every Trek series. So it is great to have Jeffrey Combs. He's always fun. He's like, his characters are always just so. There's something extra about them, and he doesn't disappoint in this one. This is funny.
Outside of Star Trek, he's famous for playing Herbert West in the Reanimator series based on H.P. Lovecraft's Herbert West Reanimator stories.
Interesting. You mentioned Queen Paulana, who shows up as a sort of Lwaxana Troi analog. So there's another a reference to previous Trek, and I mean it's that trope of the queen mother who shows up to embarrass the child who's the crew member. It's right there. That's Lwaxana. So that was fun. And like you said, it is kind of unique or interesting, the idea of the Ren Fair planet, which is a planet that had dragons. So why wouldn't you go form a Ren Fair society there?
Yeah.
I like how, as Billups explains to Rutherford, they all the technology they have on their ship, it's typical engineering systems, but they've renamed everything so it sounds like magic.
Right. The dragon's breath instead of the warp drive, and that sort of stuff. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And the entire interior of the ship looks like some sort of Ren Fair castle. He says it's a very distracting environment.
One thing I find interesting though about the Ren Fair planet, this has to be a direct dig on the Native American planet in TNG and Voyager. This idea, that all the Native Americans left Earth to create their own planet. Right. The idea that all these Ren Fair enactors went off to their own planet, and that's even if it wasn't a direct intent to do that, that's a dangerous risk to take.
I wouldn't say it's a dig. I wouldn't say it's a dig. It could be a riff on the idea.
Yeah.
Still, it could be taken as such, and I think that's a dangerous step just because of how people are rightfully concerned about issues with Native Americans and so on, and representation of Native Americans today. So,
except this is I mean, I understand some people could be hypersensitive about this, but this is a trope in science fiction that you frequently encounter of planets are often founded by people with a common culture, whatever that culture happens to be. Right. And there's some logic to that, I mean, like if you want to hang together as a colony on a planet, you need a certain base level culture in common, things like a common language at a minimum. And so you'll find planets in different science fiction IPs where it's like, okay, this planet was founded by people from China, or this planet was founded by people from Japan, or this planet was founded by people from Scotland, or things like that. We even see it in the Hooniverse, where you have the Starship UK, for example.
Yeah.
So that didn't, I thought it was interesting that you had Ren Fair people, which kind of cuts across, it's sort of a subculture rather than a culture forming a planet.
Basically, the Society for Creative Anachronism decided to go colonize a planet. I mean, if that would be the Yeah, I could imagine the Star Wars planet, where people go found. I mean, it's sort of like, let's do Galaxy's Edge, but do a real one, that sort of thing. There is a nice one with, one of the things Lower Decks does well is it brings up fan questions, like the sorts of things fans sit around and go, but why this, that sort of thing. And so we have this scene where Boimler and Mariner, and they're in their quarters with Tendi and Rutherford, and Boimler's got a phaser rifle, and Mariner asks the question that everyone asks: what's the difference between a phaser rifle and what makes a phaser rifle different from a hand phaser? And he's and he says, because you have to hold it with two hands. Like,
I've always assumed it's also more powerful.
Exactly.
And maybe a longer range or something. Yeah, it is kind of, but it's kind of funny. It's like a hand phaser is pretty powerful. I mean, you can disintegrate. So phaser rifles just look cool.
Disintegrate bigger things at longer distances.
Right. That's true.
Exactly.
It's just like if you said, okay, what's the difference between a handgun and a rifle? Well, okay, rifles have longer ranges and they're more powerful, and so you can take down a bigger target at a longer range.
That's true. That's true.
So let's hit the obvious thing about this episode and get it out of the way.
Okay.
We have this plot where Billups's mom is trying to trick him into not being a virgin. And so once again, we have sex on playing a plot element here. And I'm not a fan of that. This is 2 episodes now where this season we've had 2 episodes where sex is a plot element.
A major plot element.
A significant one. Yeah. We've also had some minor references like the Klingon fornication helmet, and there was another one too. And I want to know what's going on. So my complaining about them doing this is not going to change them doing this. But what is going on with the ratings that they give these shows? If you look at some shows, they seem to have dramatically different standards of what they will slap a warning label on. Some shows you watch and they will list drug use if people are having a cigarette or having a drink of alcohol. And it's like, that is way hypersensitive, and similarly, it's like some shows seem to be rated to include warnings for anything hypersensitive parents might possibly object to letting their children see. On the other hand, here, the only one of the episodes where we've had a sexuality warning is the one where we had the Mugatos.
Yeah.
And none of the others, including this one, have gotten any kind of sexuality warning or suggestive dialogue warning or anything like that. This one got a violence warning. I guess there was violence in this, but I don't remember it well enough. It wasn't that big of an element, or I would remember it. But I do not get the inconsistency with which TV show ratings are done. And I think they ought to be done consistently. And I think that they ought to be done in a way that reflects the values of parents better than they do now.
Well, and that was the goal of the TV ratings. What was that, 20 years ago when they brought out TV PG and all those, and it worked for a while on broadcast and cable TV, but it's a problem with the digital distribution we have now, the online streaming and so on. There isn't the oversight that there is on cable and network broadcast TV. The FCC doesn't deal with things like Paramount Plus and Disney Plus and so on. So they're free to do whatever they want. And of course, you would hope that CBS would be looking at this saying, okay, we need to make sure we give it accurate ratings, because eventually we might want to actually broadcast this on our CBS network as a fill-in show or something like that. And so it's a real problem, though. Then you get the opposite extreme where you will take Amazon will give a bulk rating for an entire series.
Right.
So if an event happens one time in the entire series, it's the whole thing, you know. So like Stargate SG-1 got slapped with a nudity rating for the entire series, even though the only episode with actual nudity is the first one.
Right, and they never did it again.
They never did it again. I mean, they hinted at it, but nothing you actually saw.
Right,
and it was such an inconsistency that Amazon just does the lazy way. CBS apparently does the other way of, well, we'll think about it.
And just even apart from the ratings, it makes me wonder what the producers of the show, where they're going with this. I mean, was it not popular enough in the first season? They said we need to spice it up in the second season.
So when this kind of stuff comes up in science fiction, it is sometimes attributed. I mean, it can be attributed to marketing, but sometimes it's attributed to fan service, and sometimes it's attributed to author interest. And I suspect it's a little bit of both in this case.
Right.
Oftentimes you have series that play it a little, they can go to opposite extremes. They can either put the sexy stuff up front to attract attention to it, or they can hold it back and reveal it later after they're established. And Battlestar Galactica did the first, where you have Cylon sex in the very first episode, you know, and then they back off because it's not really what the show is about. That was a gimmick to get people watching in the beginning, and then they don't do it as much as the show goes along. Here we have kind of the reverse, and I think that I mean, I don't like it, but I am not expecting they're going to totally ruin it.
Right.
Either. They seem to have enough sensibilities that they're not going to go too crazy with it. Certainly that's my hope and expectation based on the way they've used it so far. It's been enough that I find it annoying, but it hasn't been so much that I can't ignore it.
Right.
What I do like this time, though, is we have the characters defending somebody's virginity.
Right.
I just don't think
exactly.
I just don't think that would have happened on Gene Roddenberry's watch, where the success in this, the victory at the end of the episode is they've preserved this guy's virginity, and that's the triumph, and that's what they're happy about.
Right.
And so it's like, if you're gonna go in this direction, okay, that's one I haven't seen before, and I appreciate that.
One thing I think that irritates, one of many things that irritates me about all this is there's so many more interesting ways they could have done this. They could have, done this where Billups has the choice between leaving the ship and becoming king. And this is the path they chose. And it's just, it irritates me because you have, again, you talk about this Ren Fair planet, you have so much possibility with the technology, with the behaviors of the people and everything. And they go to the lowest common denominator. They go as low as they can.
Well, the lowest would be poop.
Not common.
Poop
That's
and
bad
fart
choice of words.
jokes.
Bad choice of words. But the low, they go low morally. They go with sexuality instead of so many other things. You could have jousts on the ship. I mean, they had a horse on the ship. Why didn't we have a jousting scene instead?
Right.
Something like that.
That reminds me, by the way, I like the way the Ren Fair people have renamed, like, the chief engineer of their ship is the chief blacksmith.
yes, that was good.
Dragon fire is plasma.
Yeah. So, and then there's the other half of the episode, which is the B plot, or could almost be the A plot, which is Boimler and Mariner. So we find out that Mariner is sabotaging Boimler's efforts to get promoted and impress his superiors. He's supposed to go on this mission with Ransom to this planet of giant centipedes, and Mariner,
they're going to wrangle centipedes.
Right. And Mariner goes to Ransom behind his back and says, "Oh, Boimler doesn't want to go anymore. He wants to go with me on this mission to take the evil supercomputer to the Daystrom.
And he's not ready. And he's not ready for it yet.
Right. And on the other hand, Boimler keeps using his short time on the Titan to make himself seem, more capable, more important, which I love the fact that Mariner calls it. You keep talking about your study abroad, which is a very funny, college student thing. Like, oh yeah, you went to England for a semester, and now you're an expert on British culture or on being European. Like, now you show up to class wearing an ascot and a tweed jacket. Like, stop it. You're not that cultural or urbane. And I like that element of the relationship there that they've developed.
They also seem to be. I mean, I'm getting the vibe that they're heading towards a reconciliation on that point, where ultimately he's going to have to let go, except for occasional jokes. Yeah. He's going to have to let go of the Titan stuff, and she's going to have to stop standing in his way.
Right. And then we mentioned that they crash land on a planet, a ship graveyard where other ships have crashed with the supercomputer. And Mariner at one point says, "Evil computers are so chatty," because it just won't shut up about connecting it to the computer of the shuttle to help them out.
I can fix your replicator. Just hook me up, and I'll get you all the nice cold water you want.
Yes. We take some lemonade, some sparkling water, and
their replicator's broken, so all it will make is black licorice.
That's right. And Mariner is so mad. She wants to bury. She says, "I want to bury it like Data's head," which is a reference to TNG when Data's head got left in a cave.
Time zero.
Boimler says it was just left in a cave, but we have a duty to respect sentient life. When he says that, was this part of his plan already? That you mentioned, Jimmy, where he was turning the AGIMUS, against itself.
I don't know, but they have established foolishly that Data is sentient life, and thus that would apply to AGIMUS too, given the typical Starfleet namby-pamby, let's all join tentacles and sing Kumbaya nonsense that they have going on this show.
Yeah, well, they even kind of call it out, doesn't Mariner say? Mariner say something like "stupid Starfleet morals" or
right. They eventually make their way to a different derelict ship that apparently has parts that are still working, after a detour past a tree of some sort that has fruit that tastes coincidentally like black licorice.
Yes, the only source of moisture they have is the black licorice fruit tree. Yeah, that was nice.
I would love that, because I love black licorice. I'm one of those anise flavors. I love it. That'd be great.
I like it too, but I gather it's quite polarizing.
Don't eat too much of it. It can kill you. Actually, the guy in Massachusetts died from eating too much black licorice.
Well, same thing with water, dude.
Exactly. So they Boimler gets AGIMUS to open up the door of the ship and gets him on board and to power up the systems from his own internal power supply. That was apparently his plan. And AGIMUS, who thinks he's won now, reveals, "You foolish humans, I'm going to destroy you with my murder drones." And the drones, he has this vision that we see. The drones look like the weapons from TNG's The Arsenal of Freedom. Did you notice that? Yeah, they're flying nice through those funny drones. But it was a trick, and so he turned the manipulative supercomputer trope on its head, which was fun. So I like that part of it.
That was nice. I also like once he reveals you're only attached to the dimmer switch, AGIMUS is like, "I will blind you," and he starts flicking the light on and off really fast.
Yes. There's only 2 left. And then, as we mentioned, they eventually make their way to the Daystrom Institute on Earth, which looks just like the Daystrom Institute we saw in Picard. So it's the same place. And it's also the first time we see Earth in lower decks, which for whatever that means. But and then he gets left behind in the. There are so many megalomaniacal evil supercomputers that they have a whole storage room for it. People stop making evil AIs. Let's just stop doing that. Anyway,
and they spend the whole time arguing against each other. Who's going to be the one to destroy the laboratory there and take over the world? And
right. So
we need to actually avoid making them in the first place, which is a problem. Yeah. Right. And in fact, this has been talked about. It's if something is smarter than us, even if you install an off switch on it, everything's all that will do is focus its attention on the off switch.
Right.
And you're going to get lots of conversations about that off switch.
Yeah.
So, anything else about this episode, Father Cory?
Nothing else here. Actually, I forgot that one thing we didn't mention is that Boimler is actually able to use the supercomputer, contrary to Mariner's understanding. Mariner thinks that he's turning against her. but he's actually he stuns her at one point with the phaser.
Oh yeah, we didn't mention that. Yeah,
and she thinks, oh great, now he's in league with the supercomputer, and he's like, no, I need to get you out of the way so I can get the supercomputer to get us to the power to do the distress call.
Right.
He said, I believe he said he needed AGIMUS to believe that I had turned, and that's why I stunned you.
That's probably the violence from the violence rating, because he tackles Mariner, starts beating her up, even though she has a broken arm.
Yeah.
Well, fractured.
Okay. Fracture is kind of like a broken arm. But in any case, she's winged.
Yeah. That was it. So.
Okay. Jimmy, anything left?
Oh, I thought it was interesting. So all this time we've had this guy. I liked the fact that even though I didn't like what they did, I liked the fact that we have an episode fleshing out the backstory of one of the bridge crew. Mm-hmm. So we know a lot more about Billups now than we did before. And he turned out to be something, much more interesting. I mean, up to now, he's been this kind of white bread guy named Andy Billups.
Right.
And we find out his actual name, it's not Andy, it's Andarethio. And he's from this Ren Fair planet where everything is named after magic and stuff like that, and they have actual royalty, and he's royalty, and it was nice to have a build out of one of the bridge crew like that. I hope they do similar build out episodes for other characters. I'd love to know, where Dr. Ta'ana comes from, or hear about Shax, or
Ransom,
or people like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there was some fun stuff in this episode. I especially liked the supercomputer stuff and the Ren Fair elements of it, and I wish they hadn't kind of messed with the other aspect of it, but. I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season goes. All right, I think that about does it for our discussion. We do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Patrick, Mike and Angie G, Gregory L, Charles J, and Father Jeff H. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. We'd love to hear what you think about Where Pleasant Fountains Lie. Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, or our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com. And we'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next new episode of Lower Decks. Until then, Father Cory Stika, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thanks, Dom.
Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
Thank you, and huzzah!
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, black licorice, the least nutritious food that tastes the most like poison.